I think people are just scared to say no. Like they just want to say yes. They're like, I'm excited. I want to be in real estate. I want to raise money. I want to do these deals. I want to tell my friends about these deals. They hate saying no. And at the end of the day, you should say no like 10 times before you say yes, because it actually means you're paying attention. And honestly, I'm surprised how many people are not trained to say no.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Rapport. Today, I got someone doing big things in the real estate space and specifically building out custom homes, spec homes, both in both San Diego and in Colorado, and even dabbling in the multifamily space. I got my man, Austin Schmidt. Austin, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, man. Dude, we had a great dinner last night at Born and Raised. Got to meet your boy Nate Dogg, who works on your team, and we had a great conversation last night. James McCabe was out there as well, and it's good, man. What do you guys
Yeah,
think?
that was cool. He was an interesting personality to meet.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like he's bringing in a lot of money these days.
Yeah, unique
He's
business model he's got,
he's
right?
turning it and being creative, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us a snapshot, and there's so much to dive into here, and I really want to dive into, your custom home builds and what that looks like, and some of the numbers around, that industry. But before we dive into that, give us a snapshot of like what you do in the real estate space.
So I started a company called Lux Builders about 16 years ago, and our primary focus is to build custom for sale housing. I would say typically it's in the luxury market, which in depending on each market, somewhere in that $2 to $4 million space. Um, I just saw a gap in the business where there was a there was a gap between like homeowners that wanted custom luxury homes, but they didn't necessarily want to like hire a builder and go through the whole process and hire an architect. And then I saw a gap with the investor community, that the investors that wanted to invest in, housing that was going to go for sale in like the luxury space, most of them had no construction experience and they really just wanted a return. And so what I tried to do with my company was really fit the niche in between them, where I could put a product out that was high enough quality that for most homeowners, they wouldn't even really have interest in going down the road of trying to build and design and hire a builder to do their own custom home. We're checking, 90% of the boxes for them. And then for the investor, they could literally put money in our deals and get their return, but not have to be just in the trenches with the day to day to get through construction.
Why do you say 2 to 4 million? Like, why is that the sweet spot?
It seems like, and that number's changed over the past 15 years, but lately, I would say it seems like the vast majority of the luxury buyers they kind of just are in that range. They really don't go too much above 4 million. That's kind of where I would say that the person that has that budget usually ends up hiring their own builder, their own architect, buying their own piece of land to get exactly what they want. And maybe it takes them 3 years, but you know, they have the money to wait if they want
Yeah.
to.
And I know personally, I've seen one of your current projects out here in Point Loma, gorgeous piece of land. For me personally, I've been living in that downtown area for, here in San Diego for about 8 years now, doing the high rise thing and going up and down elevators, and it's cool. It's very walkable. But, I'm going to be 40 this summer. And I reached out to you about a month ago and I was like, hey, dude, like, I think next year I'm ready to buy a house and kind of turn that new season of my life. But obviously, it's still got to be a good location. I want to have my water view and I want to be within a 10-minute drive to the office. That's important to me. And so I reached out to you and you said, hey, I got a project that might be a fit. I went and toured it up in Point Loma, gorgeous, gorgeous lot. Got a view staring right down the pipe of San Diego Bay, Coronado Bridge in the background, and gorgeous view, stunning. How do you find these lots in such great locations with those kind of views?
So, loaded question. I guess the quick answer is most people see some properties as a huge challenge and they
Okay.
just brush right past it.
What do you mean when you say that?
So like in order to get views like that in San Diego, you're typically doing what's called a hillside lot. And hillside lot has extra reviews, there's civil engineering required. You don't just hire an architect and a structural engineer and submit. You have to do grading plans, and these get intimidating to people. And I would say most people want the end product, but they don't like the process it takes to get there, and they don't like the challenges that start to look scary. So, I mean, that's kind of what the business of being a developer is to like find the final vision and take it from point A to B and literally like take all the guesswork out so that the guy that buys it or the girl that buys it literally shows up with a toothbrush and a checkbook.
Sure. So to give you guys an idea, the listeners an idea, this particular subject property that we're alluding to is in Point Loma, and it's on a hill. So you actually, if you're sitting at the top of the driveway, it's on a steep driveway that curves down, custom driveway, which I personally like. I think that's pretty cool. You can put a gate right there, adds an extra layer of security. But you have a long driveway that curves down, and then you pull up to the property, two-car garage, 3 levels, and just the most spectacular views that you would ever see. But yes, definitely a steep grade going down. And so talk like what are some of the challenges with building on a slope like that?
So, building a hillside project, sometimes the grading alone is more expensive than the actual cost to build the house. And I think like most people, when they first start talking to a builder or an architect, trying to get an idea of like what a budget would be, they get very intimidated by things that aren't that sexy. Like they're like, "What do you mean it would cost $1 million to put a driveway in and a retaining wall?" They're only thinking about a pool or a hot tub or a
Is
fancy
that what
kitchen.
that driveway and retaining wall cost you?
It's pretty close.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. I mean, with the engineering and permitting fees and
Hmm.
storm drainage and yeah, I mean, it's expensive.
And how much additional? Because obviously, in terms of timelines to getting entitlement and permitting, we were talking about this last night at dinner. You said, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you said in Colorado, you're looking at somewhere in the realm of 6 months, maybe 8 months for entitlement permitting to be shovel ready. Whereas here in San Diego, you're looking at minimum 2.5, 3 years,
It
potentially 4 years. Is that right?
it can be. I mean, I would say a year and a half to 2 years would be pretty consistent. Had COVID not gotten in the way. So, I mean, of all the building departments that I've submitted projects to, um, I would say San Diego was the one that went literally like to almost like a standstill. You couldn't get in touch with anybody. There was no communication. I mean, it was like throwing emails at a blank wall pretty much for months and months.
Yeah, I can imagine that the city government positions always move slow. Whether I was doing air traffic control or you're trying to get permitting done. So give us an idea. Like you mentioned, the costs. If you're gonna build on a grade or a slope, the timeline's gonna be a little bit additional, I'd imagine. How much does that increase the timeline to get permits, entitlement all done?
So, like a typical house would be, let's just call it 6 months in Colorado to 8 months for a permit. In San Diego, I'd say a year and a half to 2 years. When you throw in like a hillside lot, there's actually like a full other layer of reviews called hillside review. Luckily, this specific property was not within 1,000 feet of the shore because then you have coastal commission, which that can add. I mean, I've seen homes that people have been in coastal commission for 5 to 6 years before they start hillside review, before they start the actual like building permit reviews. And I mean, literally, sometimes these people have like their kids are up and grown and out of their
Yeah.
house by the time their home's permitted.
We manage, we don't really manage Airbnbs for too many other folks, but we do manage for like one of my buddies, and he does like luxury home builds. It's he'll usually buy existing, scrape it, and then redevelop. But it's like a nice lot in La Jolla overlooking the water,
Yeah.
coastal commission zoned, and they're operating the original structure, nice 5 bedroom home. It actually does pretty good as a short term rental. But they've been waiting for quite some time to get the entitlement done. He's like, dude, there's no say when they'll get it, but it could be 5, 6 years.
Yeah. I mean, occasionally people get lucky. I had a friend that bought a place on Beach Road in Dana Point, and he submitted a coastal commission, and they have their little process where they put the little red and white poles and they stick them all around the lot. And it's supposed to show like the heights of the corners of your building. And the neighbors can basically all look at it and call the coastal commission. And that's kind of the part that's like difficult for people to
And any
understand.
neighbor could just be like, yo, like this is not gonna fly.
I could just call and say, I think this is too tall. And if it's somebody at the government and you catch them on the wrong day in the coastal commission, they might literally be like, "Well, you got a neighborhood complaint, so we have to hear them out."
I was out in Catalina 2 weeks ago, and the boat next to us, husband and wife, and I always chat with the neighbors because it's often a lot of business owners and other real estate investors that are on these boats out there, and so I'm chatting them up, and it turns out they got a nice property in Laguna Beach, and the wife's telling me like these development horror stories, and like one of their neighbors trying to build this like ADU, and she's like, "Yeah, I've been going back and forth with the city." Trying to block this development from occurring because it's blocking our ocean view. Now I understand that. Like no one wants to have their ocean view blocked by the neighbor developing, so I get that. But outside of blocking the view, I mean, I don't have a problem with development. I think it's a good thing. It cleans up these neighborhoods, revitalizes the neighborhoods, and I quite frankly think that like a lot of these neighborhoods that were constructed in the 1950s, like you see in San Diego, I think when the majority of these properties get renovated and gentrified, it actually adds to your home value. So I think it's a good thing as a homeowner.
It does, but you're also in the real estate business, so you know about adding value, and you have some, history and opinion around it. Most people that own a home, they don't think about that. They literally are like, "I bought this home, it's my house, it's where I raised my children. This is, like, important to me to maintain my view or build my pool that I wanted for however many years of their life," and they just live there. And sometimes they're, maybe, like, used to living in a place 5 to 7 years, making some income off of appreciation, selling the house, going and upgrading, but a lot of people, I mean, especially in California, they stay in homes for like 15, 20 years. And so it becomes more of like a nuisance to them. But I say like this, like of a competent developer, contractor, architect team will do exactly what you just said. They will make it an improvement to the neighborhood. It'll raise your value. All of a sudden, like you'll be known as the one that lives next door to the really cool house,
Yes.
and people are like, "Oh, I remember that one."
Yes. Absolutely.
And so I do think it's a good thing. It's kind of like, I feel like I've heard you say, is it growth is progress?
Yeah. Happiness stems from growth and
Okay.
progress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, usually in the end, people are much happier with the product when they see the really nice finished result. Of course, they don't like dislike what it tends to sell for because it usually means that they might have had an improvement to their home values.
Totally. Do you guys go and prep the neighbors like prior to a project starting and just say, hey, um, you know, we're going to be enhancing this lot right here, and if there's any issues or noise or whatever, like just give us a ring, or how do you guys prep the neighbors there?
Yeah, I think this is a huge mistake a lot of people in real estate make. They don't create that personal connection and show the neighbors that like they genuinely do care, that they don't become a nuisance to them, that they want to improve their subdivision, their neighborhood, and have it be like a positive result. In general, most of the time when you introduce yourself to the neighbors, like I would say 75, 80% of the time, it's a very positive thing. And you're like, hey, here's my number. Call me anytime. Like, if anybody's being loud, working late, like, playing music too loud, working on Sundays, like, I want to know about it so it doesn't happen. Because our goal is to build the best, highest quality product that becomes contributing in a positive way to the neighborhood. And hopefully that'll be something that you actually look back upon and are glad that it happened next door to you. And a lot of times, like, when people hear that you care like that, they legitimately, like, just completely put their guard down. They get super cool with you. They 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 ask a lot of questions because now they're interested versus like, "Wait, how are you gonna get in my way?" So, and I think it's a huge mistake some developers make is they're like, "I don't wanna talk to the neighbors. I don't wanna create a face with the name. I don't wanna have this personal connection where if something were to happen, like somebody works late at night or on a Sunday or God forbid that a truck backs into their car on the street. They don't want to get the call. But the funny thing is, by making those introductions, I've bought so many more properties because people have told their friends that we're going to sell, "Hey, this guy built a really beautiful house next to me. He was great to deal with. Everything he said happened. He was very polite every time I brought something to his attention, and it was a good experience for us. You should give him a call." And I've probably done around 400 projects in 16 years, and I bet you 75 to 100 of them have literally been from neighbor referrals.
Mm. That's so interesting and unique, and I love your approach, and I think you could apply this to like anything in life. It's like, if we're going to look at a boutique hotel at potentially buying, we always walk all the surrounding boutique hotels, the comp set, and I'll just go in to talk to the front desk. And I think I hear other investors say, "Oh, let's go secret shop your competition." I'm like, I don't believe in that. I'll just go talk to them and I'll just be completely honest. I'll be like, hey, like I'm looking at buying this property. And I'm up here trying to get a better idea of what I can get for rates and occupancy and, what the seasons kind of look like. Like, what information can you give me? And I find that when you're just upfront and honest and you're like a fair shaker, I feel like people want to help you out. They want to go out of their way to like help you. And so one of the hotels we bought up in a rural area, this is Black Sands Inn up in Shelter Cove. You're an investor in our fund. You're part of this. Um, the hotel front desk next door, I was just completely upfront with her, and she literally told me everything about the deal. She's like told me about the owners and the management and like all their deficiencies. And I would have never got that information if I was just like secret shopping them. You know what I mean? So I think to your case, in my case, anything in life you can apply this to, like just be a straight shooter and be genuine and just be upfront about what your intentions are.
Yeah. Um, I think a lot of it just comes with kind of how people are raised. And like I was raised that like anything you do 110%. And like imagine if you were um contacted by somebody's grandmother about buying a house or wondering what you could help her with and you tried to take advantage of her. You wouldn't want that to be your own grandmother. And at the end of the day, like I was just raised that like I would treat a stranger that would help my reputation the same way as I would treat my own family. And I mean, it might not have always been the best decision at the exact time. Maybe I paid more for a property. Maybe I cut a deal and did a few extra things for the seller. But in the end, it's probably paid off like tenfold. Because, like I said, big percentage of our acquisitions have come from like off market complete referrals from neighbors of projects we've done or previous sellers we bought homes from. I just think if you treat everybody right, they all remember.
Totally. I got a question for you. I got a lot of questions in regards to like strategy and all that sort of thing, but I'm curious because we renovate hotels and stuff like that. It's like, okay, you got your budget set aside, you got your contingency budget for change orders and all this stuff. But, when you get down to like punch list items with a renovation, and this could be any property, any asset class you're renovating, you can always keep going forever. There's always more things you could do to improve it. What if this? What if that? And yeah, obviously it'd be nice to do everything, but you got to stay within a certain guideline of budget. And so for you doing these new builds, how do you determine like how much you're going to do in all these finishes and like when enough is enough? And you're like, all right, we can do more, but we're not going to do any more. We're going to bring this to market now and complete the project.
So I feel like the word design is a really difficult thing to define. I mean, I could ask you the same question that you just asked me, and we're going to answer it totally different. I always tell people that if you think about your own like personal buying habits, like you like built clothing,
Yeah.
like I like Nikes, I have an Apple Watch. Why do you buy these things, right? You bought them because for some reason you saw an ad or a friend or word of mouth or someone told you that they liked it and it resonated with you and it made you separate from your wallet, right? And so like with designing homes, like of kind of trying to decide where the start and the stop is on like the spend level. Um, I guess the easiest way to answer that would be that, usually the people that write the check to buy the house, they spend the most time in the living room, the master, the kitchen, and typically like their outdoor amenities. That's a big thing that a lot of developers kind of skip on is
Is the
they'll
outdoor space?
the outdoor space.
Why is that?
I think like someone a long time ago might have taught them that if they build more square footage, they're just automatically gonna create more value in their product. And there's kind of like a sweet spot where um, I would tell you that like I I've built some homes that were like 25,000 feet, and by the time you get through 6 or 7,000 square feet, it just becomes redundancy, not usable. So there's kind of been this new trend in our product where we'll try to pick like a square footage range between like 42 and maybe 6,500 square feet, maybe 7 at the most. And instead of making a bigger house, we will just put bigger garages, gyms. I mean, we'll do the gyms with like mirrored walls, TVs in the wall, water bottle fillers, speakers built in the ceilings, and people eat it up. They're like, wow, this is what I would have done. And it's already done. I can just literally move in the next day, plug in. I mean, we've even put the equipment in the gyms and spec homes
So you try
out.
to make it as turnkey as you can for these
Totally.
folks that are buying your homes.
Most people lack the vision, and that's the
Mm,
thing is, like, if you can take the vision to where you catch people's eye with, like, the eye candy, which is obviously just typical finishes, right? Like, you can make a house look very stylish, that's eye candy. But, like, if it seems like in Colorado and California, people really like the outdoor amenities, so they'll like, the fire pits, the pools, water features, outdoor kitchens, the really nice, like, pocketing sliding doors that push in the wall. I mean, that's kinda like the sexy stuff that people just pay attention to. And then when you go inside, you gotta think about the guy that writes the check or the girl that writes the check. They spend the most time in those 3 areas. It's like, I want my house to look impressive when my friends come over in the
hmm.
front.
Yeah,
They
it's
want a great.
entertaining, and first impressions everything. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, most people, that's how they met their girlfriend or their husband,
Mm,
right? They were like, "Oh, I'm gonna talk to them." Same thing with a house. Like, if they pull up to a house and it's very has a very good first impression, they're probably gonna go inside and spend a lot of time snooping around. And that's what you want. You wanna catch their eye with the eye candy. So, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, to answer your question, like, the design part is it is tough to know where to stop and start, but I find that the amenities and, just really spending time on getting the extra things that most people add to their homes in the house before they buy it, it doesn't cost me as much as most people think that it costs them, and they tend to, like, be just really excited that they don't have to go through the process of doing it.
which items do you feel get? Because you mentioned like people spend the most time in the kitchen, the bathrooms, and the outdoor space. But which items do you feel like give you the best ROI in terms of like these finishes?
So I think front curb appeal is a huge thing.
Landscaping?
Landscaping, a lot of builders just do not
Yeah.
step up and they'll put $2,000 worth of plants in a $3 or $4 million
If
house.
you go look at a lot of these new home tract developments,
Totally.
sometimes they just do like the minimum lawn in the front just
Hmm.
to like pass the HOA, and then everything else is like stripped. Like the backyard will be dirt.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, we'll typically spend like 3, 4 times the amount of money in planning around a yard's landscape, and I think that that just makes people actually feel like you paid a lot closer attention from the first time they pull up and look at the property when it's for sale.
Mm. Yeah, and it will photograph a lot better, I'm sure, right?
Front doors and garage doors, if they're forward facing, are a really common thing. People like really cut back on their spend, and the difference between putting in like a 6 or 10 foot tall like pivot door is just like not that much money, but it's really impressive when you open it. We'll put in glass and aluminum garage doors a lot, where most people will just put like a simple plain couple $1,000 door, but it's like it's a pretty big percentage of the front facade, and it's like you want to make it look like it's gonna pop and catch your eye. Probably the other three biggest things for us, besides like kitchens, living rooms, and master baths, would be outdoor amenities like patio space, um, and custom patio doors. Custom patio doors are
Like an accordion door that opens up to the patio.
totally.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, accordion, like I have a 16-foot pocketing slider. You hit a button, the whole thing opens, and it just disappears in the wall. And when friends come over, they like are like, what, wait, what is that? How much does that cost? Where'd you find that? They just don't see it. And so it catches their eye. And then like certain appliances um, are,
What are the top appliances? Like Wolf,
I
Viking.
would say like Wolf stoves
Yeah,
are,
with the red knobs.
they're kind of the eye candy people
Yeah.
love. And built-in espresso machines, we'll.
Wolf does that?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Into the stove?
Oh, yeah. No,
I
no,
didn't.
no, it's a separate device, but
Uh,
it's like basically like a little barista in your kitchen.
that's pretty
You just hit
sick.
a button, it's like you want a latte or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So it's things like that that people didn't have in their last home that really makes them like, to be honest with you, it's really what drives their buying habits, because 'cause they're like, "This is a change for me. I'm moving from this place to this place. My budget's increasing." And these are like kind of the eye candy and the catchy things that get them excited.
Yeah.
So patio doors are the big one though, for
Mm,
sure.
it makes
Usually people
sense.
haven't had that before, right?
But I think, like, more importantly, the concept of having some accordion doors that open up, or maybe it's a pocket door that slides, but just having that nice indoor outdoor space to where it feels like one cohesive room for entertaining, I think is huge. I'm curious your thoughts on flooring. Personally, I really like the look of like engineered hardwood, or like hardwood, but I know the engineered hardwood seems like it's a little bit more practical. But what are your thoughts on flooring, and what kind of budget you like to spend for flooring?
So I think in the end of the day, I mean, the way I'm gonna answer this is more towards like luxury home sales,
Sure.
but I think at the end of the day, people like real materials, right?
They're like
Like
what?
they like real materials. They don't want a plastic flooring that looks like wood. They want something that is wood, whether it's engineered or it's a solid wood floor. The cost isn't actually that much different. It's just the style and the look. But we primarily use engineered hardwood floors in our homes and $3-4 million homes, and it's really just because it looks like a
Yeah.
million bucks. You know,
Yeah. And what's the cost per foot like installed for some of the engineered hardwood that you guys like to use, ballpark?
typically like $12 to $13 a square
Mm.
foot.
And you'll put it in the wet areas too, like bathrooms,
I
showers?
I don't do
You
that.
don't.
No, I mean, I know some people do. You'll see it in like photos and in magazines and stuff, but it's kind of like it's not easy to maintain in those areas. So that's actually like one of the things when we sell a house, we walk people through and tell them like reasons why we made certain decisions so that they know how to maintain their home better. And I mean, I've had people that have literally like called me 4 or 5 years afterwards and they're like, "Hey, I'm glad you put this here. It actually has held up."
Pretty good, yeah.
Um, which I mean, it feels kind of good, to hear that stuff because you feel like you're trying to make decisions for the right reason.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's the real materials. Like people don't love like a plastic that looks like a real cabinet. They don't love a plastic that looks like a hardwood floor. So,
You know what, design for the bathrooms I don't love? I quite frankly think it's like a really terrible design, but it was very, like, trendy, over the last, like, 5, 6, 7 years, and, I've done it at some hotels. I've done it at my luxury, renovation, my Scottsdale Airbnb, but it's just not a practical use. It looks kinda cool, but I don't think it's practical at all, and it's a shower glass that's, like, half open, and it's not a shower door, but it's just, like, literally like a shower panel, and then half of the shower is open. Even for a big shower, like, that Scottsdale property I have, it's a massive shower, but the water still splashes out, and it gets everything wet, so I just don't think it's a good design, and then obviously it's hard to with the upkeep and that sort of thing, but would love to hear your thoughts on how you approach the showers.
I mean, in most custom houses, like we are using what I would call like large format tile a lot,
Okay.
and it's pretty trendy right now because you just don't see all the seams and tile pattern, and it starts to look like real stone on walls, like cladded stone walls. We do typically like fully enclosed showers most of the time. I find that like practicality, like as cool as some things look, like most people at the end of the day, if it's like really practical, they're gonna get behind that even more and actually be glad that you did it versus saying, "Oh, that looks really good in person, but I'm not sure I'll like that in 2 years." And it helps drive their, like, buying habit.
That makes sense. What's the thing now with, like, a primary bedroom or master bedroom? Do people want a one large walk-in closet, or do they want, like, a his and hers?
It's a little bit of a mixed bag. I would say that most people what checks most of the boxes I see is, like, the primary bedroom having, like, a fireplace, enough room for, like, at least a chair, furniture that has, like, a bed, nightstands, all that stuff, bench at the end of the bed, a detail wall, so, like, a wall behind a bed that has, like, millwork and custom paint colors or, we've done ones that are brick, we've done ones that are, like, steel and wood, just something that's, like, gonna be, like, eye-catching, um, and then, honestly, like, on the closet side, like, just drawers and closets are a big deal, like
Drawers in the closets and,
yeah.
like, all the built-ins?
Yeah, I mean, it's a common thing I see a lot of builders skip on is they'll just
Yeah.
throw racking in, but
It
we'll
looks so
throw
cheap.
8, 10, 12 drawers in, mirrors built into the walls. We'll have like swing out racks that you can hang steamers on and stuff. And people are just like surprised that we thought of it.
Yeah,
They
I like
usually
that.
they usually expect to have to do that themselves. And
Right.
so when they see it, they're like, "Oh, I
They'll
don't
pay
even."
up for it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just like it's one less thing that's in their head.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and you got to think like most buyers that are, buying a product like this, they want the turnkey stuff. They don't want to have to go do things after the fact. But I agree. I think the built-in's a nice touch. I think, and I've seen this in like larger closets where they'll have some sort of island in the walk-in closet with more drawers. I think that's a pretty nice touch as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. One thing they do, like in my my building that I'm at, they got the built-ins in the closet, but then they got these TVs that are behind the mirrors.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's nothing like like crazy, but it's pretty cool. I
Uh-huh.
never use it, but it is kind of cool. And when people come over, they're like, "Damn, that's like badass." It's like a conversation starter.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty cool. But like just little gadgets like that, I'm sure like those mirrors don't cost like anything crazy, but just like to have it, I'm sure if you're selling a property, people are doing tours and all that, they're probably like, "Wow, this is really
They
nice."
talk it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the techie stuff that goes into houses can be really hit or miss as a spec builder.
What, and by the way, I'm curious, like for the listeners out there, and I personally don't know, what is the difference between a custom home and a spec home?
There doesn't have to be a difference. I
Really?
would say a spec home would just be that I built it on speculation. But it doesn't mean that I can't build it to the level of like maybe what you would pick for your own home.
Yeah. And when you
Um,
say I built it on a speculation, what does that mean?
just like, similar like how you buy a hotel on speculation to,
Yeah.
renovate it, raise rents,
But it's still custom home. You design it
totally.
from however you want to design it.
Yeah,
It's not from
exactly.
like a standard or a predetermined set of plans at all.
No, that's more of like
What would you call that?
that's more of like what like a production home builder
Yeah.
does, like somebody like
So a big track.
yeah, like a big tract where they cut a piece of land outside of a city and they're going to build 10, 15 home plans and maybe change the stone on them or change a couple colors. Um, that's more like production home building, like custom home building, whether it's like for a client where they're picking all the finishes and driving the process and making decisions, or we build a similar caliber a house where we pick all the finishes, we drive the decisions, and then the whole plan is to build it on speculation to put it up for sale at the end. Um, that's mostly what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of your buyers, when you go to sell, are most of your buyers coming in before you come to market, or are most of them coming in after you go to market?
Um, it de- it depends on what the supply's like in the area. I've had situations where people have tracked us down before we even put a hole in the ground because they heard that we own this product. They looked up who we are as builders and they're interested in it and they want to know like price range, what it looks like, what kind of homes we're designing, can they have say so. But I would say 8 times out of 10, I like to kind of finish the whole project and really put like the TLC and get it to that last like 98, 100% because people just lack vision and they a lot of times when they get involved early, they second guess thousands of decisions and they slow the process down and they tend to overthink things. And like I've been in hundreds of homes and seen what people actually use after they buy these homes. And it would probably surprise you how many things people pay for that they tend not to use.
Yeah, yeah. What's a couple examples of something that you see people spend for, and they're like, "Oh, this is not worth
Movie
it."
theaters,
Mm,
they'll spend 100 grand and then literally turn it on 5 times and never go back in them.
yeah. I could see that, and that personally, that's something that I probably wouldn't spend up on. I don't have a lot of time to sit there and watch TV these days, but certain things I think is nice. Like, okay, a home gym. I think that's cool. Even if I would go to a real gym, I would still probably use my home gym every now and then for those quick workouts where I'm like a little bit pressed for time in the morning.
Yeah,
Cool, perfect solution right there.
convenience.
Yeah. But what's another thing? That's a good one. Movie theaters. What else?
So I'll tell you, like, probably the techie stuff I find people spend a lot of money on, and they think they're gonna, like, constantly log in their phone and play music in 10 rooms in their house, and they find out they only do it in 2. Or they wanna put 6, 7 televisions in, and they watch 1 or 2. Um, I mean, I just see a lot of that. I see people spend tons of money on, like, uh, game rooms, buying pool tables, arcades, all this stuff. They use them for one party and they never turn them on.
Sure.
They never use them again.
Do you ever do like backyards, do like pool, jacuzzis, fire pits, all that built in with barbecues and all that?
Yeah.
You do? Is
Yeah.
that a pretty good ROI for you doing it?
N- no.
It's not.
No.
Really?
No. I've done probably 4 spec homes that I've built full a full backyard amenity package, like a pool, hot tub, fire pit, outdoor kitchen, bocce ball courts, basketball sport courts, and honestly, it's usually like a wash for us at best. But sometimes it sells the house right away, but the cost of that stuff is so specific and personalized that it's it's not something that we can kind of figure out a better way to put
Yeah.
together.
So now if you do a project with a larger yard, you won't consider doing that?
We'll usually do the outdoor kitchens, the fire pit areas, maybe the sport courts, but the pool is kind of the hard one. That's
Why is the
kind
pool
of
the tough one?
just cost. I
Yeah.
mean,
How
it's
much does a pool cost these days to put in?
I'd say like the lowest cost one I've done in 3 years is probably 130 grand.
130,000 for a
Yeah.
pool?
Yeah.
Damn. And that doesn't
And they can get
include a
up to
jacuzzi?
200, 250.
Wow.
So, I mean, you got to think about it like that. A lot of people like pools. They just typically don't usually think they cost that much. So, when you're the spec home builder, you're wanting to try to pick finishes that people have high value for that you can build out reasonably, um, and just take those items off their list.
Hey guys, if you're looking to get into real estate investing, but you're like, hey, I don't have the time, but you want to participate in the passive income, the tax benefits, and the wealth building, my company, Summers Capital, partners with limited partners, people like yourself, and we go out and buy boutique hotels. We have a fund where we currently own 5 hotels, and we currently have a wait list for investors to participate with us. If you want to learn more to see if this is a fit for you, you can go to summerscapital.com/invest to inquire and get on our wait list and be notified next time we have an opportunity. Again, summerscapital.com/invest. Now back to the show. So if someone has an existing home listening to this right now and they're like, hey, my wife's trying to talk me into putting a pool in my backyard, and let's just say the pool is going to cost 150,000. How much are you increasing the value of the property in your estimation?
I would say somewhere around half to a little more than
Half
that
of that.
of
Okay.
that
So
pool
you're getting a
cost.
little bit of that
But
cost back.
it's different though. Like you have to think about it like how you live, right? Like I don't know what kind of car you drive, but did you choose to buy a nice car or did you
I
buy
drive an R8 and I drive a G-Wagon.
Okay, so why'd you pick a G-Wagon and not a Honda SUV?
Because I like a couple things about the G-Wagon. One, it's very heavy, and so you feel very safe and secure. It qualifies for code section 179, so it's a write-off. And also I just like the look of it. It's got an aggressive look.
Yeah, so if you were gonna put a pool in your backyard, I'm assuming you put it there because you were gonna throw parties and use it and actually enjoy being able to like have it in the comfort of your house that's private, not share it with people. I mean,
Yes, or use it to entertain.
you can't really put a price on that if you actually use it,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I think it's like a good thing to do if you're gonna use it. I wouldn't tell you that it would add a dollar for dollar value.
Okay, that makes sense. That
I
makes
would
sense.
put one in my own house.
You would, yeah,
Yeah.
because your kids and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
that makes sense. Okay. What's the biggest mistake? I'm curious. What's the biggest mistake that, new investors getting into spec home, custom home builds? What's the biggest mistake to watch out for?
I have seen a lot of people gravitate towards the lowest bid. And I would say that there's just so many moving parts in construction that I mean, an average house probably has, I mean, when I put together a budget on a house, it's probably got 180, 170 line items. And that's from like 17 years of building. Like that's where after you do 10 projects, you add another line item. After you do 20 projects, you add another 10. And so like it's like fine tuning, right? Like you go to a dentist, he knows how to clean teeth perfectly after
Yeah,
20 years, but he probably wasn't as
didn't
good in
start
the
that
first
way.
2 years.
Right.
And one of the things I see like homeowners and investors make when they're trying to build a custom home or, build a home that they're going to sell is they tend to gravitate towards the lowest bid because their brain tells them that they are going to get so much more for the lower priced contract, but in reality they didn't ask the right questions. They didn't have the right allowances and they start to get into the process and get halfway pregnant through the building process and they can't turn back and they see tons of overages. And they're usually always surprised. They're usually always upset about it. It creates a lot of emotion. It's if you think about it, like usually everyone's most expensive personal possession is their home. I mean, there's people that own obviously like commercial real estate and private
Yeah.
jets and
But for
things.
most people,
For most people, it's their home. So
yes.
it
So
hits
it's an
hard.
emotional thing.
It hits very hard to
Yeah.
people, especially like investing, like when you got into investing, like, you took a big chunk of your net worth
Sure.
and threw it out there as a risk, right?
Sure.
Imagine if you did that and you made a poor choice.
Mm.
You would get emotional about it.
Yeah.
You can't help but not do it.
It'd be a big
Um,
setback.
yeah, and I think that a lot of people like really struggle to trust people in the construction space because they just don't understand it. It's like I didn't go to medical school, right? So if I go to a doctor and he tells me like, "Hey, Austin, something's wrong with your knee," and he prescribes to me a way to rehab it, go through a surgery. I've done this 100 times. I have to trust that person or else I shouldn't work with them. And I find that when it comes to construction, people usually assume that they know a lot more about the business than they actually do. They tend to not trust most of the people they work with. And unfortunately, they don't ask the right questions,
Mm.
you know?
What are the right questions to be asking a contractor, or maybe you're subbing a specific thing out of the project, and you get 3 or 4 proposals. What are the right questions to ask?
So I would say probably the top 5 questions would be to actually like roll out a set of plans and ask questions about some of the different style and finish work that you're expecting in the house, whether that's the type of exterior masonry, the types of patio doors like we were talking about. Take the time to pick out things that you already like and be prepared. Usually people say, "Oh yeah, you've done this before. Like, tell me what's great." And they don't take the time and prepare. The other thing is, like, how do they handle change orders? Most people don't wanna talk about it because they don't want it to happen, and it's actually something I just bring up to people.
Yeah, outline it beforehand.
Yeah, I'm like, here's the simple thing. I put a allowance in your home for finished carpentry that includes interior doors, hardware, baseboards, window trim, closets, and the list goes on of what that category is allowances for. Hey, in my experience, we spend this range. Here's photographs of what that looks like in other homes that are similar in size. Do you see this working for you, or do you see something that you want to detune it and go with a lower budget or increase it and go with a higher budget?
Yeah.
What tends to happen is people don't want to have that conversation because they think that it's going to make the contractor or the builder start to think about charging them more.
Mm.
So they just don't talk about it. And then it comes up and it feels like a huge surprise. So if you prepare yourself for what the change orders might look like and how they get approached, and are they giving them to you before they do the work? Are they giving them to you after they do the work? What does your contract say around how you're supposed to present them timing wise? Um, Probably beyond that, I would say like how they're going to communicate with you.
What's your favorite way to deal with timeline? Let's just say you're working with a new sub, and they're going to be doing a specific line for you. What's your favorite way to negotiate some sort of timeline?
So like for a subcontractor that would
Yes,
work for us, um,
and create an
s-
alignment of interest for it to obviously finish
yeah.
on time.
So there, I'm a little different than most builders. Most builders just want to literally get the most output at the lowest cost from every subcontractor. And the truth is they're always looking for a new one. They don't really have like that,
Go to.
lifelong partner in their
It's because they don't take
business
care of
that
them.
takes care of painting homes for them, or that lifelong partner that frames houses for them. And a lot of these people are actually really good at their jobs. They're just not that great at running a business. They don't Nobody taught them how to do accounting. They became good tradespeople and sole proprietors. So typically what I've always done is like I try to find like a cost that I can standardize, that I can pay them, that they're happy with, to where I don't feel like every other project they're kind of surprising me with something. It's kind of like creating a scenario where like if I came and stayed at your hotel 10 times a month, you'd probably be open to doing something special for a person that does that versus somebody that just calls you once every 3 years. It's the same thing in construction. Like, hey, we're going to be in the bed together every month doing these projects. Let's work out a fair price that's good for you, good for me. I want you to win. And it's a common thing I tell them is like, I don't want them to go to work and work for our company and not be able to provide for their families,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know? Most of them actually are surprised when they hear it. They usually probably don't believe it at first because 'cause they're so used to the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Now, so with timeline, it's like, hey, let me just work with someone that I have a good relationship with. Let's build something long term, and so through that, they're going to prioritize you as a client versus working with some of these other folks, and they're going to prioritize your project, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, in in general, with subcontractors on timeline, um, if there's 40 subcontractors that build a typical construction project, I would say it's not uncommon to have 2 or 3 that kinda don't follow the timeline you try to get them to follow. And it's just about how you manage that. You gotta communicate more with that person. It's kinda like you spend more time on the 2 or 3 than the other 10
Yeah,
because you're trying to keep things rolling and moving. Um,
end of day reports, stuff like that.
yeah, just, sending them photos, "Hey, you forgot 2 things,"
Yeah.
like, "No big deal, can you get back here?"
What are some of the
Um,
things? Because you're in Colorado, and you got some projects out here in San Diego. So when you're managing a project remotely, what are some items, or maybe like use a little bit of technology to manage? But how do you keep track of what's going on if you're remote?
yeah, I have, probably not every job site, but most of mine, I have, remote cameras on where I can actually, like, log in and see when people are coming and going.
That's good.
Um, it kinda, like, lets me know I don't know exactly what's going on inside the house,
Hmm.
but I can see, like, XYZ
Activity.
plumbing truck pulls up,
Yeah.
and they're there all day for 3 days. It kinda gives me an idea of, like, what I should be expecting to pay for coming up and what I should be expecting the next time I visit the project to see completed. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. Like, I would say remote monitoring is it's challenging, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm curious. Do you ever look for a potential exit once you get the permits, entitlement ready to rock, the property shovel ready? Do you ever just throw something on LoopNet to see if you got any buyers that are willing to pay top dollar, and then you don't have to do any of the work?
I have a few times, um, but not very many times. No, we usually try to see them through to the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
The
I
the few times you've done it, have you actually sold it?
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I have done that a few times.
Hmm. For
Um,
the investors that are buying that kind of product, what's the value for them? Because
mm,
they're obviously overpaying a little bit, right, for
they
the
they
shortcut and
typically
timeline.
are. Yeah, they're typically overpaying because they don't like the entitlement phase. Or maybe it's just something that their business model. I actually know a few investors that they buy fully entitled construction projects only
And
because they don't want
they
to
do that at volume.
they want to raise money, start their project the next month, and not wait on a permit and make it contingent upon their closing. And they probably do okay when the market's appreciating. I feel like when the market flattens out, which it tends to do about every 7 to 8 years, they're probably not in a great spot when they buy an entitled deal. Depends on what it is, though. I mean, um, I've sold a couple of subdivisions fully entitled where we've gotten the horizontal development through approval. And basically, it would be the next phase would be to start construction, cut a street, put water and sewer in. And I've sold those literally like with a stamp set of plans ready to go and not done the actual horizontal work.
Yeah. So speaking of subdivisions, I know you've done several of these. Speaking to you last night at dinner, um, what exactly is this business plan? Kind of like outlay it. What exactly does it mean to subdivide these lots?
So, primary acquisitions my business makes would be like what I call like infill lots. So we don't typically go out into like a master planned subdivision where you'll see the larger production home builders. We're kind of cherry picking places, and like in San Diego, it'd be like in Point Loma and La Jolla and Mission Hills, and we've done a few projects in like Pacific Beach and Encinitas, where we're just buying something inside of an existing neighborhood where there's just not that much new supply. Sometimes it's we're the only one. Sometimes there's 10, 2, but there's not a lot. Um, Subdivisions are kinda interesting because most of what I've done is, like, pocket subdivisions, so, like, what I mean by that is, like, I don't go buy 2,000 acres and cut 500 lots. I've typically gone out and bought, like, 10 acres and cut, 7 to 10 custom home lots, and then we're gonna build out the whole subdivision, so we make kind of our own little mini market where, you
You'll
know
build like your own cul-de-sac and all that.
Yeah, exactly. And it kinda, like, sets the tone, so, like, people drive up to it, they see the uniqueness versus what's around it.
And would that be like, its own gate and like HOA and all that, or
Yeah,
no HOA?
yeah, yeah.
You would create an own
Yeah,
HOA?
I've had to do it a
Really?
couple times.
Interesting.
I just did one the other day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what's the pros and cons from like a builder perspective of, creating a subdivision like that with 15 homes, let's just say, with an HOA versus no HOA?
So HOA literally is just the documents that the planning departments make you file, but most of the HOAs I've created literally say that the owners of the properties in the HOA can decide how they wanna maintain. So I don't specify things like you have to pay this much into the HOA, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and somebody has to be on the board, and I don't do that. I let the homeowners, choose how they're gonna, maintain the items that would be maintainable in the HOA. But I would say the main reason why we do subdivisions is just to create our own land bank, where instead of us going out and it's much harder to identify like one piece of property, underwrite that one deal, put together the type of custom home plan for it that's unique. I've actually only built the same house twice in 300 homes, so I've got that many different sets of plans. So it's challenging to constantly do that. Whereas if you go out and you take a bigger piece of land and make 10, 12, 15 lots, now you kind of know what your land bank looks like for a period of time, if it's 2 to 3 months of starts or 5 months of starts. So yeah, I mean that's the main reason why I've done it. It's like I can control the end product. So you know, kind of going back to what I said earlier is like most people lack vision, right? So if you go out and cut a cul-de-sac and you say, "Hey, here's our beautiful plan for what we want to see built here." Well, if I sell 7 lots to 7 different people, that's not going to get executed. It's going to be very inconsistent. Typically that doesn't drive up values. If there's some consistency of like the level of finish, the type of architecture, and we're talking like nicer homes, um, it drives up value. It actually it's good for us as the sellers. It's good for the home buyers too because then they have nice homes being built next to them and not XYZ buys it and chooses to build a house half the size of theirs,
Yeah,
you know?
totally, totally.
So,
Talk about the market cycle for, builders, especially in this space. Obviously, people people in all asset classes make more money when the environment's great. But last 36 months we've been in a high rate environment, a little bit of inflation, cost of construction's gone up a little bit. Um, are the spreads still like pretty good, like in an environment like this, if you're buying right, and buying these nice lots in good locations like you are?
yeah, I mean, buying right is always
The
important.
key.
Definitely in this business, the money's made on the buy every
Mm,
time. And you have to be really smart about what you do. Like if you just go out and try to make every deal be the lowest price acquisition in the area, you're probably going to get a bad reputation. And people are not going to like dealing with you because of what you probably said or did to get those deals. Like I was saying earlier, like I always treated people the same way. I just shoot people straight, like, hey, this is what kind of price point I'm going to be at in the end. I got costs involved in the way. We have to make a profit. Like I'd rather shoot you straight right now than surprise you. So I'd have to pay in this range. And I mean, when you're that honest and upfront, you tend to find people that are going to tell you yes or no. And I'd rather someone make a decision
sure.
that we could turn it into a deal and move forward or move on.
Or get a no and move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like spend too much time in real estate. Oh, I've been working on this seller. I'm massaging this deal. It's still coming. It's coming. And then they're like devastated when it doesn't work out. And it's like, dude, why didn't you just ask him? Like, tell him you have to make a profit. Tell him you're not trying to, reinvent the wheel, but you want to do something that's right and hit a price point and you need to be here. They're probably gonna tell you yes or no right away, and you can move on and move to the next one.
It's not just that, but it's like anything in sales. We gain utility from the yeses, of course, uh, but we gain time from the nos. I love people that can give us a straight no, like, hey, it's not for me. Great, you just saved me so much time. Like, I love that. And so, whenever someone's trying to sell me anything, I'm either like, yes, let's do it, or no, it's not for me right now, but keep me in mind for the next time. And, because I like to respect people's time, but it's the maybes. And, people that spend a lot of time with these people that are like, "Oh, yeah, maybe we're interested." And it's like, okay, this person's often leading you down the path.
Yeah.
It's just like, "Hey, make a decision." And I love people. I love working with people that can make quick decisions.
Yeah,
Be decisive.
I think probably the thing I've seen people be the most successful, especially in the real estate business, is literally the ones that just make decisions. Like it's like make a decision.
Yeah.
Like don't talk about it 700 ways to Sunday and still not make a decision. If you like to talk to get your decision, talk it out, make a decision. And like I had a mentor in the business like early when I got out of corporate America, and basically that was the first thing he told me. He's like, learn your lane and make decisions. Stay in your lane until you get really good at it. Make decisions. Then you can deviate outside of it, try new things. But you did ask earlier about like the high interest rate environment, and I would
Yeah.
say that like it's not it's an elephant in the room. There's definitely been some challenges. I would say like buying properties right and getting like very high quality product has kind of outperformed what the market's been like. You have to think about it like this. If someone called you up and said, "Hey, Rich, your car that you ordered now has a tariff on it," you might think twice about paying 20% more for the same car. Same thing with the interest rates. Like when you look at like the cost difference to finance, like some of these buyers are staring at a mortgage payment that's 25-30% more, and right, wrong, or indifferent, it's actually not a high rate when you look at like a 40-year span. We just came out of a really low rate. And so it's a change, and people hate change. So what makes people make the change? High quality product, good locations. Um,
But to your point, I mean, I was actually, I've been seeing a lot more of this lately. But a lot of these builders are doing like these rate buy downs, which is like kind of making these rates not that bad. I mean, you get a rate in the threes now with some of this stuff. If the seller is willing to buy your rate down, I'm like, a rate in the high threes. That's pretty damn good.
it's
That's
really
like that's
good.
really good.
Yeah.
And so if I'm a buyer out there, I'm thinking like, yeah, that's 3.8, 3.75. Like that's a hell of a good rate. That's not far off of what we were getting 4 years ago. And so I still think like is there's opportunity out there, and it's pretty common to see these sellers doing that. And so I mean, I think when I look big picture, macro perspective, if you look at the supply and demand fundamentals, I don't think anyone would have thought 3.5 years ago that we would be in this high rate environment for this long, and that real estate prices in most markets around the country would be relatively untouched. And I think that's really a testament to how strong the supply and demand fundamentals truly are. We're experiencing this big demographic shift right now. It's occurring across the country. The baby boomers are living much longer. The millennials are starting families for the first time. They're buying homes for the first time. The Gen Zers, which is even larger, they're moving out of their parents' house for the first time. They're looking for apartments to rent. They're looking for houses to rent. And so you're seeing this big shift in demographics from the demand side. That's one. But two, if you look at supply, like macro perspective, we had COVID in 2020, so there's a little bit of slowdown in new builds, housing starts, and then with the rate environment being so high in the last 36 months now, let's call it, I've seen some articles out there saying like new home starts are at an all-time low, like the lowest it's been in decades. And so if you look at how high the demand is with this demographic shift that's occurring, and then if you look at new housing starts being at all-time low, yes, we're in a high rate environment, and yes, like the cost of construction has gone up. But to me, when the rates normalize, and they will normalize at some point, I'm speculating, I'm always one to be wrong, but whether it's 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road, when the rates normalize, I mean, there's going to be a huge shortage of supply, and demand's going to tick up. And I mean, I don't know. To me, man, I think supply, it's always supply and demand. I think the only thing that's national with real estate is interest rates.
Yeah, I mean, we have had low supply in single family and multifamily housing in almost every market across the country and to the tune of like almost 5 million units. And they've been quoting that number off and on. It's gone up, it's gone down a little bit for like 8 or 9 years. And I think biggest reason why is like the entitlement phases in most states are pretty slow, and it usually drives a lot of people to wash out of the business. I mean, imagine if you could go out and raise capital and say that you were going to start a construction project in 4 to 6 months, and that was like a realistic time frame. There would be so many more successful people in that business. But because there's like challenges, nuances, delays, like just things that come up just from dealing with getting through entitlements, getting through construction, it washes out a lot of people, and that does not help supply. And so like at the end of the day, if you were out trying to buy a house, um, do you think that in 5 years it's going to be cheaper? Probably not.
No, not at all.
It's really not. Like if you just look at the macro
Well, and don't forget,
perspective,
the federal government has printed 80% of the money supply in the last four
totally.
and a half years. And a lot of that money is on the sidelines right now with the rate environment. But when things normalize, get ready. I've read a lot of articles that are aligned with what you just said. We're 4 to 5, maybe 6 million housing units short of the supply of where the demand is in America. Pace Morby said something very interesting. He said, this does not account for the 25, 30 million dilapidated homes in America that are not
Right.
rentable. They're not bankable. You can't get bank loans on them. If you account for that, there's a even bigger gap. And so, a lot of these projects you're doing, it might be a 2, 3 year life cycle. So it's like a lot of these projects you're starting right now, probably when you go to like, when these are ready to sell, we're going to be in a completely different environment. We're going to be in a much harder market than we are today. And so, yeah, it's not everything lasts forever in this space. And I think a lot of us forget that because we're in it, and you've been in multiple cycles. You've been in this game a lot longer than I have, so you know better than me. But I think we forget as entrepreneurs and real estate investors that are in the grind every day. Like we forget the last 30 to 36 months was not supposed to be easy. And so for those of us that are like figuring out a way to still get it done in this environment, when things improve, and they will improve at some point, get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready.
I think it's just about knowing your numbers too.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, what I find is happening around us a lot right now is that there's builders building around us that are kind of over improving, kind of paying too much for land. They're not really like making the returns that they had hoped to make on a couple of projects. Then it stalls a couple others. Maybe they end up selling them. Um, it's just moving too quick and not paying attention. And it's like any business is like fundamentals. Like I don't know if you were an athlete growing up, but like coaches will kind of tell you like you want to get good at basketball, you shoot 10,000 times a month. You want to get good and stronger and play football better, you run a lot, you lift weights heavy. You'll get stronger and faster. And those are skills that you can do in business too. Like, it's if you just literally show up and put in the reps all the time, pay attention to your numbers, buy right, stay in your lane, keep doing the same thing that you've been really successful at and perfect your craft. I mean, you become kind of unstoppable at some point. And the market has its swings, but if you know your numbers, you can take the swing with it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
it's okay to hit a double sometimes.
Yeah.
And I
It's okay to
think
hit a single.
I think Instagram and real estate and all this stuff. You see so many of these influential type people, and they want to only tell you the highlight reel of like how they went and made $1 million, how they went and became independently wealthy. And it's like, hey, it's okay to just get at bat and hit singles and doubles. Actually, like the most successful people I know hit singles and doubles for 30 years every time they got to work and never stopped. And they
It's so
ran
good.
everybody over.
And by the way, contrarian to being a professional athlete, this game that we're playing, entrepreneurship, business, real estate, you can play for decades and decades and decades. Look at Grant Cardone, and the guy's almost 70 years old, and he's just getting warmed up. So it makes you realize perspective. Like
Yeah.
like this game we can play for a long time. And I agree with you so much. Like this game is all about just staying in your lane, picking one thing, and then becoming the best at that one thing through multiple reps and multiple seasons of at bats and playing it over and over and over. And that means often continuing to play it when it gets boring, right? And that's where you start to see the success on the other side. I know you're investing in multifamily. I want to touch base on that quickly. Tell me what you currently own in the multifamily side and what that kind of looks like.
So about 10 years ago, I mentioned I had a mentor in the business, and one of the things he told me was he was like, you can do well when you build for sale real estate, but you can't get off the hamster wheel if you don't reinvest some of those funds. And so, like, he pulled me to the side pretty quick, was like, hey, go build a bunch of stuff, sell it 2-3 years in, start taking a percentage of your income and reinvesting it into something that you're going to hold longer term to get, inflation, appreciation, and all those things to work for you. And so I started buying apartments. I actually built a car wash. Um, I've done 7 buildings that have been renovated and rent raised. I've built 3 ground up apartment complexes from a dirt start. Have 3 in entitlements right now, and then I'm in a group with 7 other people that own about 650-ish units in Arizona. It's a good business to be in if you understand like the fundamentals of like waiting out market cycles. Like you can't buy every single multifamily deal and see it just skyrocket to the moon from year 1 to year 2. There's been some trends where it's done that, but long term, it's like a
Well,
5 to 10 year play.
the one deal you told me about last
Yeah,
night,
yeah. That one's crazy.
that
Yeah.
that was exactly that.
Yeah,
And we saw some of that stuff as well on
I'm
our end,
sure.
investing in multifamily. But that's when I like started pivoting into hotels when I saw that going on,
Yeah.
and that was 2021, early 22 before the rates went up. Give us a snapshot of that one deal you guys bought in Arizona you told
So
me about last
so
night.
we bought a deal in Arizona. I'm not going to say where. It was 163 units. We paid about 27, almost 28 million for it. We had a plan to put like $3-4 million worth of improvements plus some other money into like the pool and the landscaping. We got about $1 million into the project, and a syndicator called us and basically solicited us to sell them the deal, and we sold it to them at month 18 for almost 47 million. And
18 months,
s-
and how much did you put into the property at that time?
like $1 million,
And you were planning to put a lot more, right?
a lot more.
Damn.
And they were, we just saw a lot of people trying to move money around really, really fast because, rates were low. They were raising capital really quickly, and they didn't have a place to place it. And normally that was probably one of, like I mentioned, I usually see everything through to the finish line. That was probably one of a few that I ever let go before we got done with
Yeah.
it.
So you guys bought it for 26,
Almost 28,
exited 18 months later, 43,
47.
47. And what did you tell me last night? This group now came back to you guys.
Yeah, they unfortunately, I don't think they're gonna be able to keep the deal. They haven't quite their plan to redeploy more capital and raise rents again has not really worked. Obviously we saw interest rates significantly increase on them. They were basically hitting like the 4th year, so they were on a 3 or 5 year lock. So yeah, I don't know. We might be buying it back. We'll
Yeah.
see. It's a
And
great asset though.
And
I
it
mean,
goes back to 'cause I saw this too. This is much smaller scale, but one of the early deals we bought, it was this 32 unit multifamily deal in Indianapolis, but it was in a sub market called Greenwood. Good sub market. But anyways, C class deal. We bought this property for 1.1 C class deal. We renovated 50% of the units, and all of a sudden the property next door was for sale. I'm talking to the listing broker. He's like, dude, we can get you this same number. And on a price per door basis, it was like basically 3x of what we had paid for it in 24 months. And he's like, dude, just stop renovating the units. He goes, people will pay more right now for non-renovated units than they will renovated units. And so sure enough, he brought this to market, had multiple offers right away. And the group that ended up buying it from us was syndicating the deal. And they paid 3x what we had paid for it 24 months prior. And that property, they had plumbing issues. It was 1960s construction. It never cash flowed when we had it. And these guys bought it. I'm like, I wish them nothing but the best. I don't know how that deal's working out, but that was the testament. They paid a 3.7 cap rate in a sub market on C class product, 1960s product in Indianapolis. And that was right before the rates went up. And that was when I was kind of like, dude, this is getting kind of crazy in the multifamily side. But I think the takeaway for the listener here is like, you got to stick to the fundamentals. And for us, it's always been 3 things. It's like, 1, we got to buy in a good location. 2, buy below market. It's got to be a good deal. And then 3, you got to be able to add tremendous value. If there's not a clear path to add value, you're not really leaving yourself much of a buffer or a cushion margin for error. And the group that bought that deal, same thing. It's like, okay, they're not buying below market, probably in a good location, but they don't have a clear path to add a lot of value. Like, what kind
Mhm.
of assumptions are you looking at if you think you're going to take that from 40? What was it? 40 what?
For almost 47
So
million.
how you can take that from 47 to 65? Where's the clear path? Probably there was not a clear path for that, right? So
I mean, I think sometimes some of these guys just raise money and that is their path. It's just to raise the money and trying to put it to work and hope for the best over like 5 to 10 years. And sometimes they end up being right. And um, but yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with what you said. If there's not a path to add value, I think what happens is some people are just really scared to say no a lot. And I don't know how much you get called by, brokers, but I mean, I probably get 2, 3 phone calls a day sometimes from commercial real estate brokers. Hey, I know you own this property. We got a listing coming up around the street. I'm like, cool, what is it? And they tell me, I'm like, cut to the chase. What's the price per door? What's the price for this? And they try to talk in circles about all the things that they want to tell you except for the pricing, price per door. And I literally usually just stop them and say, just tell me the price per
I'm
door.
the same way.
Hey, if I like it, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
But if you like talk in circles around me, like how are you going to expect me to trust you to help me resell that deal? Because I do this on speculation. You know that I want to be a long-term owner that one day will sell for an upside. So I'm not going to buy a deal that it doesn't have that path.
Totally. The other thing I tell people all the time, I'm like, guys, like, look for assets that haven't traded in a long time, because those are typically the assets that haven't been renovated. They got some upside, potential seller financing opportunity, but don't go and buy assets from people that, bought it 3 years prior, 2 years prior for half of the price they're looking to exit on. Like, you want to be that person. You don't want to buy from that person, right? And that's like simple real estate 101 in my opinion.
Yeah.
But some people don't look at it that way.
I think people are just scared to say no. Like they just want to say yes. They're like, I'm excited. I want to be in real estate. I want to raise money. I want to do these deals. I want to tell my friends about these deals. They hate saying no. And at the end of the day, you should say no like 10 times before you say yes, because it actually means you're paying attention. And honestly, I'm surprised how many people are not trained to say no.
Yeah. Austin, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a pleasure getting to know you with dinner last night, but such an amazing conversation. We just had so much value. Where can the listeners get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you, or even if the listeners want to potentially invest with one of your projects in these ground up development deals that you're doing?
Yeah, so my company, Lux Builders, like I said, been in business for 16 years. Our main focus is to take investors through the path from A to B to help give them a guaranteed and stable return process. We do raise capital. You can send me a DM on Instagram at Austin Schmidt 2258, and then look us up at lux-builders.com. We do projects in California, Arizona, and Colorado, and we have a full team, and we'd love to help you earn your real estate vision.
I love it. And you've been in the game for a while, man.
Yeah.
So impressive. You said how many builds you done? 400?
Almost 400, yeah.
Just getting
Yeah.
warmed up, my man.
Yeah.
He's Austin Schmidt. I'm Rich Listeners. Thanks for tuning. See you guys in the next one. Peace.